5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door.
The storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for tuning in to another amazing episode. This week, we get to talk with our favorite new podcast, Promoting Secular Feminism. We're going to then transition into Trump, Bernie bros, can we survive? We're going to do all of those because we think it's important to establish whether we have privilege, whether we don't have privilege. Should we vote third party? Should we vote Hillary? I know Hannah's sitting in the back over there being very quiet, but he has some opinions. So make sure you stick around because we have an amazing, amazing time planned. But as we begin, let's bring our friends from Promoting Secular Feminism onto the show.
To the studio. I'll have you know, in a whole year, I have not had to bring in a whip.
That comes in year 2.
Yeah.
Yep, year 2.
Yeah. So, well, let's get into the interview because I think that's probably the best part, right? I mean, that's the whole reason we bring you guys onto the show is to actually have an interview. So go ahead and for all the audience and for all the guests and every 2 people that listen to our show.
Look, you're cracking a beer. We haven't even started.
Oh, that's okay. That's the whole
Don't
point of our
judge the
show.
beer drinking. Don't
That's right.
judge. Joke,
Yeah,
don't
well,
judge.
if you listen to our show, you can actually hear us progressively getting drunker the longer we go about the show.
You can hear the glasses banging on the table and against each other,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, we do like 3 Jaeger bombs a week.
They're
Wow.
just asking us to introduce ourselves and crack, and that's all you need to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
That's it.
It's not whiskey, though, so it doesn't really count.
Now, this is what the penis gallery does.
Our
I
official
recognize
podcast drink is usually whiskey.
Whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, which one?
Depends on what Amanda's got.
Yeah.
Usually, I
Ah.
bring my favorite are Irish whiskeys. So that's been prevalent, and then we've had a Scotch, and we've had a couple
Yeah.
of bourbons.
Mm-hmm.
The
so-
only thing I'm opposed to, and I apologize in advance to your Canadian listeners, is Canadian whiskey. I don't know why that exists.
See, and I would agree with you because for us, the Canadian whiskeys, I don't like it very much either, personally. I do like rye. I love rye. And it's funny because 90% of the time we're too poor to drink good whiskey. So we drink shitty ass like Ezra Brooks type stuff and we just mix it with Coke.
Fair
But
enough.
last weekend I actually bought a Glenlivet. They have a 1824 Reserve whiskey. And I don't know, we were kind of drunk and I went into the liquor store and they're like, "Hey, we have this." And I was like, "Well, how much is that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's $150." And I was like, "Okay, I'm not buying that because I don't make enough money." And then the guy's like, "Oh, it's only like $40." So then, of course, you're like, "Yep, sold." And then you get home and you're like, "Hold on, that was stupid of me. Why did I do that? Dude just sold me on that whiskey."
Yeah, I would have bought that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she would have
The
made
only-
I sacrifice a lot for my whiskey.
The only one that I really don't like is the Lafroig. Is that how you say that? I have no idea how you say it, but it's very smoky, peaty.
You don't like the oaky scotches.
It's like it's way too peat. Like it tastes like you are like drinking peat moss.
What you got
And
against
it's
Peters?
Just it's way too much.
Like eating
It's
an
good.
Icelandic
Can't
house.
What you got against Peters?
Well, I mean, I'm bi, so I only like them sometimes.
No, okay. You're good then.
And so for everybody listening to the drinking podcast here, because maybe we should do that. Maybe we should do a drinking podcast. We have a guest podcast that's joined us tonight for a segment to introduce their show to all of our guests. And we have the 2 hosts, Misbehavin'. You're supposed to say
Hello.
something. There you go. And Amanda Wright.
Hello.
And then we have the faithful Penis Gallery joining us as well.
Yep, that's just me. Thank you. Thank you.
So welcome to our show. And for all the listeners that are listening, we found something in common. We like to drink. But what we
We
also
are-
have in common
We're
here.
a drinking podcast.
Well, that's even better because we are too. And you could tell by the time we get to the end, there's definitely been enough alcohol and vibe to put a rhino down. But the other reason we wanted to have them on is because they do an amazing podcast called Promoting Secular Feminism. And it's a podcast, and I'll be honest, I heard about you guys, or you all, through a gentleman named Gene Elliott. Because we came down to ReasonCon when I was with my old show, Atheist Analysis. And that's where I met Gene. I just kind of followed him and Jennifer from there. And then that's where I learned about your show. And then now I have a weekly segments and show that I get to listen to. And so what you all do is really awesome because you guys focus almost solely on feminism and how all the different tenets and things inside of society all fit within feminism. And you go out of your way to do, I believe your show tagline is like sex positivity and the positive waves of feminism, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know that we have an official tagline.
That's close enough.
My favorite
like
is feminism with a dose of comedy, or a spoonful of comedy helps the feminism go down.
I've heard her say that before.
Wow,
That's
did you guys
probably
plan
the
that?
best one.
Because that was really smooth.
No, we do that on the show a lot.
We're
And
quite
so-
practiced at that.
One of the best things that I liked about your show is it's kind of a variety show in terms of you don't just do interviews, you don't just do dialogue, you guys do skits as well. And so let's talk. I guess I don't know. Why don't you tell everybody how you guys you all got together and started the show, and let's go from there.
Awesome.
It's been a year. This is our year anniversary now.
Yep,
Ooh.
August 17th.
Yeah.
It will be 1 year since we started our podcast.
Thus far, we've avoided the pod fade. So it's been a year. And about a year ago, we were doing some local activism.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about prayer before county board meetings.
County commissioner board meeting. Yep.
And we were protesting that. And we all went out to dinner. And Miss B for a very long time had wanted to do a secular feminist podcast.
Yep.
And I happened to have a vagina. So that's what happened.
So it qualified you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what qualified me. I was the other vagina. So let's do a podcast. And then at that dinner, there was something about, somehow we started talking about flatulent unicorns.
Yep. And that's how Princess Sparkle Farts,
Our mascot was
was born.
And then that turned into promoting secular feminism.
Yep, because we decided that
So you can tell there's a lot of planning.
calling it Princess Sparkle Farts would have been a little strange since it didn't really describe what we're doing. But she does
and that
have
took a
adventures
long
and
time to
stuff.
come up with the name. Like
It
that
really
was the most
did.
difficult part.
Yep.
So,
It worked out though.
maybe you guys should, or maybe you should all like take Princess Sparkle Fart, or however you say. I can't pronounce shit because I've already been drinking. But maybe you should take that, and make that a hashtag for like everything you do. You just use Princess Sparkle Farts, and then everybody that tweets at you for the show or emails in or whatever, they have to use that hashtag.
Well, she's in a lot of the sketches, so she
Yeah.
makes an appearance, and she has a whole backstory.
Oh yeah.
And then we have we usually hashtag PSF. So if you want to hashtag it, that's what we usually do, just for the sake of brevity.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of things that are PSF though. That might be a good idea to do Princess Sparkle
Princess
Farts.
Sparkle Farts.
Well, I
Yeah,
look
she
forward
is-
to the day when Princess Sparkle Farts is trending at the top of Twitter, just to see
Oh
the
my God, that
crooked
would be
looks
so
of everyone
amazing.
in society. It's like, what
Raw
in
men.
That was partially why we kind of decided to incorporate her into the show, was just to have like t-shirts with like a winged
all of the
farting unicorn.
All of the ideas came from what we wanted to wear on t-shirts.
Yeah, pretty much. Because we had a winged farting unicorn on a shirt that says PSF, Promoting Secular Feminism, and people go, what
Well,
the
we
hell?
had to figure out how to make the fart cloud pretty.
Yeah.
Right? Like it couldn't just be brown.
Yeah, thankfully my husband, Mr. Haven, is a very adept artist. So he came up with the design for Princess Sparkle Farts, and he writes all the comedy sketches. So he figured out how to make a superhero secret agent shape-shifting unicorn into something to talk about feminism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was.
It's pretty amazing.
And you know what's funny? My daughters have seen that, and they like it. They think it's hilarious. And luckily, that you don't have like a big dildo on it or something, because
Right,
I couldn't
yeah.
show it to them. But they think it's my daughters think it's funny to fart. They really do. And, my wife always kind of complains a little bit. She's like, so you guys are so crass, and why are you having them? Why do you let them think that's funny? I was like, well, because it is funny. I mean, it just is. And if
it never gets not funny. Yeah. I've been waiting. It hasn't happened. It's still funny.
Yeah. So that's why I said. So my daughters actually, they like unicorns, and they have the shows they watch will have the unicorn symbols on it. But when they saw yours and they said, "Oh, Dad, what's that?" And I was like, "Oh, that's a podcast I listen to." And they go, maybe when I'm older, I can listen to a farting unicorn podcast. And so every once in a while, they'll say that. They'll be like, yeah, my dad listens to farting unicorn podcast. And people are like, what the hell is that?
That's so
You're the
awesome.
coolest
Yeah, it
kid
does make
in
the
school.
sticker look pretty cool.
Yeah.
My mom put a sticker of our show on the back of her phone, and I was like, mission accomplished.
I mean, that was my dream as a young woman, was I want a farting unicorn podcast.
Yep, totally.
That's what happened. And your dreams can come true, ladies.
I will completely admit that has always been my dream, except only when Godless Bitches stopped happening, and I was like, and then Princess Sparkle Farts was born.
Yep.
I just want to make a plushie of her. I want to figure out how to make a plushie of her, because that would be the cutest darn thing.
Well, I think it was the last damn thing I ever thought about was being on a feminist podcast.
Yeah,
well,
no kidding.
welcome.
And thanks to our feminist podcast, somebody suggested that you ought to be on Atheist Avengers. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah,
Look at that.
Anyway, that was a long way of saying, and here we are. We
Yep.
made it 1 year later.
Yep.
Well,
We're
that's
still
amazing.
alive.
Yeah.
2 women can be in a thing without killing each other. Go figure.
What?
They didn't get emotional.
We didn't let our periods get in the way of podcasting.
And so, one of the things that, so I've been an out atheist for about 4 years, roughly. And Hannah's kind of been a lifetime atheist. I mean, he never grew up really religious or anything like that. And same with my wife. My wife didn't really grow up religious. She did go to church a little bit, but she kind of cast off religion rather quickly. But one of the things she mentioned when we got, when we were together and I started getting into atheism, and she goes, there's not a lot of women in atheism podcasting at all, or YouTubing. It's just not there. It's not existent. And she always used to complain about that. And it's funny because I think she listens to your show. She doesn't like to admit, because she tries to stay away from the whole secular atheism thing. She says, that's your thing. I don't, want to deal with it. But I do think she listens to your show. And she does every once in a while, because she'll make a comment from like one of your sketches, and I'll be like, "Hey, I know what that is."
That's secret code. Secret feminist code language.
But tell us a little bit about, I guess, being feminist and being, a woman's show inside of the secular movement. I mean, do you guys do a lot of secular movement stuff, or do you kind of do your own thing? Where do you kind of fit into the whole spectrum of it?
Well, I try to balance it a bit so that what I'm doing is providing a lot of good feminist information, feminist content. But I consciously often envision when I'm writing something for the show that my audience is the secular community as I know it, through podcasting, through conferences, and that sort of thing. Because I was just completely appalled when I became an active part of the secular community. With the way in which feminism was viewed in the secular community, for a lot of the secular community. From my background, I had been pretty comfortable with feminism for a very long time. I know a little bit about feminism, and for it to be viewed that way by a lot of the secular community, not all of it, but a lot of it, is really what inspired me to do a lot of secular content for the show, to make sure that there is an opposing voice, an opposing viewpoint, something that says, here's what I think feminism is, here's what it is to me, and here's why it's a really important part of my secular activism as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do a lot of talking about like the importance of sex education and trying to understand our sexuality outside of the context of religious indoctrination. And I'm actually going to be doing a series about access to healthcare procedures like tubal ligations, vasectomies for guys, and hysterectomies in a little bit, because there are so many stories of people being denied these procedures based on sort of a cultural norm about our sexuality. So I talk a lot about sexuality and sexual health on the show.
There's there's one thing about the secular community that I hear over and over again that my pet peeve is the way in which feminism is always compared to religion. Like there's all these shortcut
yes.
arguments that get made to discount feminism, and it's all feminism equals religion. And so
Really?
as
So
a secular feminist, I find that particularly problematic.
Or that like feminism is somehow like
It's
Islam
irrational.
in particular.
Yes, it is like
it gets
Islam.
compared to Islam, and we're like, what?
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything along those lines. I guess I'm just not deep enough into it. But when the people are making these, they're basically just shortchanging the whole thing, saying that, oh, this is this really simplistic view of women's rights and equality and stuff like that. They're just saying that you guys are just oppressive in trying to attack existing male privilege or something, or is it more like they're just completely irrational? There's no point in even paying attention to what they're saying.
A lot of it's that, and this is coming from some really smart people in the secular community, some published authors in the secular community,
Mhm.
right? And the
well-respected members
well-respected
of the secular
members,
community.
speakers at secular conferences. And the argument is basically, it boils down to that feminism is irrational, but basically feminism historically was very productive and was necessary. But at this point, feminism has devolved into an internet culture that is just about, being shrill and
anti-free speech.
somehow. And all of that. So basically they're contesting what they think feminism has become.
So it's a little bit along the same lines that we're getting some of the feedback and pushback from like civil rights movement and stuff, saying that you're overreaching. There's no real need.
Right.
Everybody's already equal. Women are equal to
Right.
men. African Americans are equal to everybody else. When there's still a
Right.
discrepancy there, still unequal. And so they're just, it's like an apathetic idea. It's like, there's no need to keep fighting for this. It's already all good from obviously the privileged male's perspective.
Mhm.
Yes, and I would like to know when that happened.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, what was the date?
Yeah,
when
I
women
would too.
became equal?
I've been running around trying to figure out ways to help just get the social inequalities come down. And people
Right.
keep telling me, it's like, well, what are you talking about? America is the land of the free. Everybody's equal, right? Nobody has any kind of special bias against them. And trying to explain those things from time to time, it's so difficult.
Yeah. A lot of times when we get pushback and things on social media, or I find like a friend's post on Facebook that like somebody is making ridiculous arguments about feminism and stuff, I use that opportunity to troll the fuck out of them by just saying,
She's very good at that.
you know what? You should totally check out this podcast about secular feminism. It's called Promoting Secular Feminism. It's really cool. Here you go. And then I will reply to every single one of their comments
With a link
from
to
that point
PSF.
on with a link or like a promotional something. And I'll be like, hey, we totally did that on episode 30. And like, which doesn't exist at this point. But like,
Time warp.
I will tie it specifically to different episodes to be like, oh, Demanda totally talked about this.
She's
or
the
I
nicest
totally talked
troll
about this.
ever, right? She's not into mean trolling. It's just, I can give you some information about that. There's a podcast where we talk about that.
I did some like just weird trolling the other day where some guy, I was like, when hashtag I'm a feminist was trending on Twitter, I used that opportunity to post a whole bunch of our episodes and stuff. And like one of them, I said, hashtag I'm a feminist because I think that all genders should be treated equally.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody replied with, by all genders, you mean the two that exist, right? And I was like,
Oh,
hemorrhoids got you down? Try Preparation H, extra strength pain relief, $14.99 at Walgreens. And he actually replied to that. And I'm like, really? You're obviously being trolled back.
So he said,
What's
thanks.
the point in responding? He was like, no, I'd rather spend those $15 on bleach, thanks. I'm like,
That
What
would
is he
hurt your ass.
bleaching?
probably for a suicide attempt.
Like the cum stains on his mattress?
I don't know, man. I just left it. But that's the thing is that like I troll with shameless promotion because I know that other people are looking at that and going, this person is such an idiot and this person keeps promoting this. Maybe I should check it out. And usually it works out. So,
My favorite way to
That's
use
great.
the Socratic method and be as dumb as possible and ask them really, really simple questions and just watch them squirm, because most people have never really had to elucidate the very, very specific, simple ideals that they are espousing. They're shooting off somebody else's thoughts, somebody else's ideas, and they've never actually thought about it for themselves. When you ask them, well, could you explain exactly what you mean by that? Could you go a little bit simpler? I don't really understand. And they eventually get pissed off at their own ignorance, and then they'll just rage quit, which is my favorite way to get them to run away.
Rage quitting is great.
Rage quit. Yeah, this is why I do very little social media.
Yeah, I'm the social media person for Promoting Secular Feminism. So if you see our Twitter or Facebook or something,
It's Miss B.
doing something, it's me. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes God,
Sometimes God.
our producer.
God intervenes randomly and without warning.
Yeah, that's true. He
So on
doesn't
your
talk
show,
much,
you
though.
guys believe in God now?
No.
We God is our producer.
Oh, okay.
God is
God
our
is-
producer.
God
At
is
least,
the
at least this
name.
God's somewhat tangible.
And
I
he
should-
provided us a studio.
I should specify that God is the name of our producer. God is not actually
Yeah.
a god or deity that
God
exists.
is our producer.
We are making fun
period.
of the concept of God
Because
by
he
having
doesn't
someone
speak.
named God.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk much.
And he gets things wrong.
Yeah, he does. Frequently. He drinks a lot, he gets things wrong.
And he watches porn during the whole show.
Yeah, he discovered furry porn on our show.
Oh,
While we were
you!
We actually interacted with someone. Actually, no, Chris.
I
worked
did.
with
I did.
someone.
So I work. I
Don't
work
have to
at.
say who it is. Don't say who.
All right,
you
I
work
won't say
for.
the guy's. I won't say the guy's name, but I work at a company called Steelcase. Please don't tag Steelcase in this because I'll lose
I
my
know
job.
of this thing.
And
I know of Steelcase.
so I work in the inbound service center, and we bring temps in. We had this temp, and this dude was the nicest person you could ever meet. I'm dead serious. Like, he was real nice. I kind of got a little vibe. He was a little weird, but he was a really nice guy. He went through about a week of training, and then he got put on the floor. Well, there was some dude that was giving him crap, and nobody could catch it happening. So it was always one word versus the other, and then all of a sudden, he comes into work the next day, and Steelcase security shows up to escort somebody off the premises. And they give my boss a phone call, and all of a sudden there's this rush. They take the guy off premises. Well, come to find out, outside of work, he wasn't tagging Steelcase, but he was actually saying Steelcase, and they must have some IT checker. Well, come to find out, he was basically talking about bashing some dude's head in because he was giving him shit with a baseball bat or a shovel or something. Just like really horrible. You shouldn't say that type of stuff, but he is out of work, so chances are he wasn't going to do anything. So it was all hush hush, and all of a sudden, one of the bosses is like gave me just this name, and I won't say it on the show, but I'll tell you afterwards if you want to look it up. And I figure out where to find him on Twitter, and I was like, holy shit! And his whole Twitter is filled with furry stuff, just the whole thing.
Wow.
So he was a gay furry, and that was what he did in his spare time. He lived in a little apartment, had a crappy car, but he went to every furry convention. It seemed, from his Twitter at least, that's what it said.
I'm still like ignorantly, I'm in ignorant bliss about all of this. I know that something like that exists, but I still don't know exactly what it is, and I refuse to learn.
I think we should have some of that at ReasonCon next year.
You think there should be a furry party?
Yeah, I think there should be.
Do they have
a
any
lot of our
cosplay
listeners have
stuff there?
beards. A lot of the listeners have beards.
If we were going to have a party, we would want to be more inclusive and have it be like a fetish party. But then
There you
again,
go.
not everybody is as sexually
I'm worried about this.
aware as we are here at Promoting Secular Feminism.
I'm sex positive, but I'm sexually repressed. Like, I don't want to know. Like, I'm fully supportive of all of your sexual activity. I just don't really want to like be in the middle of a party where people are like bumping furries.
Yeah. That's okay.
Well,
As
it's
long
weird
as
when they
you're
take the
not-
head off. They've got the
As
head
long as
sitting on the
it's not my
table because
thing.
they're too
As
warm
long
or
as you are
something.
not trying to take away their right to do what
No,
they do in
like-
the bedroom.
Fur away. Get your fur on. I just don't want to be in the middle of two furries bumping. That's it.
There you go. That's totally fine.
It'll
my
ruin your
prerogative.
conception of Rocky and Bullwinkle. That's all I know.
Well, let's go back to the podcast
Oh, yeah, that's what
that
we're
you all
doing.
have a little
Furry
bit.
people are probably like, I don't want you in the middle of my bumping either. So
They
you go.
probably don't. Well, I don't know. That guy probably would have been more happy if somebody would have come into work as a furry. So
I would expect.
he would have been very happy about that. But going back to your podcast, you all mix it up quite a bit in terms of the different topics you focus on. So tell us a little bit about your sketches and kind of what goes into the writing of the sketches and what makes you choose, what sketch to do.
Most of the sketch ideas are my idea because my husband writes them. And he usually writes them like the day that we're recording or the night before if we're recording in the morning, which we rarely do because drinking.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of random interest, like, I think there's going to be a Space Odyssey themed comedy sketch at one point. Like we make requests.
Yeah. And a lot of them are based on, my husband is a Gen Xer. So a lot of it is based on like 70s and 80s nostalgia porn.
Yeah.
So like
how it happens.
if you're into things like Venture Brothers, for instance, then you'll get a lot of the references that are made in things like Princess Sparklefart sketches and other such things.
And I get almost none of the references.
Yeah.
And so people are,
Your husband
talking
does,
about
though,
the-
because
yeah,
he's the
he-
same age.
yeah,
So
he knows what he's talking about.
I'm actually the oldest one in here.
Yep.
Oh,
I know.
It happens. I miss a lot of this. I miss a lot of the references because I'm much younger. So like a lot of it's from like 70s and 80s type things. And I go, I don't know what this is, but I'll read it anyways.
I
So do
think
you
there
Google
was
it
like a
then?
Thundercats reference once, and I was like, "Oh, I know that one."
Well, if you're
Well, and a lot
scripting
of it
them,
has.
can't you like read up and be like, oh, I don't know what the hell that is, so I'll look it up on
that would
Google
require
first.
study and preparation.
That would
We're opposed to
require
that.
reading the script before we actually do record.
It's funnier if we just do cold reads.
Yeah, ad lib does get pretty interesting, especially when you're going through. Sometimes I'll put a big giant outline together for Chris to go through on a science segment or something along those lines, and I'll stick all the big science words at him. Then he can, if he obviously doesn't practice at them at all, then it just turns into mush mouth for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Stop making fun of me and my inability to say words.
It's
Well,
a
you know
problem
all the
around
words.
here too. And the
You got
nice
the
thing
best
is
words.
too,
No,
Mr.
that's
Haven
you.
is very good at writing for the person, so he knows to give me and Demanda the big words
Oh yeah.
usually and the big monologues because we can read them at a fairly quick pace. Especially Demanda. I mean, she can really do like the,
The legalese.
medical warning at the end of a commercial about medication of some sort,
Yeah.
like
Butt hurt.
Preparation age.
yeah. Yeah, that kind of
this
thing.
is what happens, and this is how we record normally. And so we end up talking about preparation H
Yeah.
for 45 minutes, and that's a podcast.
Mhm.
So that's all you need to know about it.
Anal beads from
Anal
Target.
beads.
And I am
And that's
the,
why you needed the preparation H.
I am the
Exactly.
editor in chief. So Demanda and I often argue about whether or not I'm going to edit a certain part or not.
She never does.
I do sometimes because I put the little chime
I'm-
noise in when I
I'm
did
bitter.
actually edit something, but I often do not because everything she says is gold.
Mm-hmm.
It's a genius
And-
idea, putting a chime noise in. Because you know how many times you record for 2 hours and you're like, okay, what do I got to cut out? I know I
Yep.
coughed, or I know I sneezed, or, the alcohol spilled, or some crazy shit like that, and you got to edit that part out. Or the part where my daughter will walk in halfway through sometimes, and all of a sudden you can hear her in the microphone because she'll get really close and think she's being quiet, but she's not.
Yeah.
But it's
Well, a
like
lot
a
of that's
tiny
the-
little squeaky noise.
A lot of that stuff is golden. It's like when you're actually recording something like that, when you're just having conversation with another person, even that little interruption can be golden and be a part of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really connects the listeners to what you're doing.
It really
right?
does.
It gives you a backstory, a life, like all of that's happening around you.
Yeah, we did a segment at the house one time where we had to record at our house, and the cats were fighting
cats
outside our
made it.
door. I mean, it's like they made it on the podcast. So
Famous.
Yeah, there are small guard dogs here at the studio, so if somebody pulls in the driveway or walks by, then those dogs will start up. But if I had to record at my house, like anybody who's near our street,
Yep.
we've got a whole horde of dogs.
And all
barking.
of our listeners know every time we pee.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah,
There's a
'cause-
lot of peeing on the podcast.
Yes, there
Is that
is.
'cause
that's
you
because
Which
you
I think-
announce it.
Which
Do you
which
carry
I
the
think
microphone in with you?
humanizes us.
Yeah.
It will probably
It's
happen
like,
again
okay, and I have to pee now.
soon. we have a bathroom like right there.
Yeah.
There's a door, but I mean it's still right there.
We just wait for the commercial break, and then we sprint into the corner. It's like, oh, come on, hurry up. And then hopefully we get back in
Like I
time.
said, I listen to so many podcasts. It really does make a difference when you sound like you can be like very personable with the people there. So when like that we don't edit certain things that Demanda does weird, then it really makes me laugh even more when I listen to it again.
I would like to point out that there are a lot of things I do that I don't edit out.
Oh, I know.
Also.
Yeah, you are very fair about it. I have
Yes.
to give you that.
Thank you.
The more
Although I don't-
organic, the better. I mean, that's one of the
Yes.
things that I found. You get the stuff like an NPR type thing where it's everything is just point off to the next segment, and then you have some of the shows where it feels like a conversation, like people are having a good time, and some people like one, some people like the other, and some of them like going back and forth.
Oh yeah, you can't please everybody.
Yeah. We don't aim to please everybody either, but
we aim to please ourselves.
But yes, we do.
That
On the
was
show?
last night.
On the show.
Sorry.
Okay.
I
But
wasn't supposed to talk about that.
We do
Yeah.
aim to educate everybody who comes to listen to us. I mean, we get comments all the time that people are like, I thought I knew everything about feminism, and here I am learning a whole bunch of stuff from your show, especially like your Waves of Feminism segments that you did, or the segment about asexuality and asexuals that I did last time. We got a lot of feedback on that about how asexuals are rarely talked about.
Right.
And yet they are one of many sexual orientations that people can legitimately be. So
Yeah, and I think the asexuality thing is growing. I think
Yeah.
that people are becoming more vocal about it. I guess I don't know if I would say it's growing in the sense that there's more people that define themselves as asexual, but I think it's actually coming out where people are talking about it more, and it's becoming
More
accepted
awareness,
within
yeah.
society.
absolutely. And I think it's up to people like us who have a voice to be able to say, hey, you should know about this because it's totally legit, and you should be like, hey,
It's
if somebody
important for
says
people
they're
to hear.
asexual, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Not try to force them into something they don't want to do.
We're trying to normalize it.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
even if you yourself are asexual, I mean, and that's not a term that you've ever been exposed to, like it really reduces a sense of anxiety to
Yeah.
know that this is, other people feel the same way. This is your orientation.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah, totally.
So I have another question, and we've already gone, I think, for over a half hour now, so I don't want to take too much of your afternoon up here, even though it is fun to drink and just sit around and talk into a microphone and drink it till we can't talk
well, there were
anymore.
farting unicorns in preparation, H. What more do you need? Really, another
That's
question.
true.
Well, that's a hell of a buffer right there.
so I'll be honest, I'm a white male for those that don't know, so I have
Seriously?
privilege. So
Me too.
Really?
yeah,
You too?
yeah,
There's a lot of you out there.
there is.
Especially in
And
atheist
actually, I
community.
think there's not that many. It's just we're really noisy when we don't get exactly what we want. So we have to. I'm pretty sure there's an equal number of males and females on the planet.
Don't worry. I have a lot of privilege myself. The only thing that separates us is my vagina.
Yeah.
Ah.
I'm a white female, so I have a lot of privilege that I have to be aware of myself.
And so I think that over the last 2 years, that's been one of the things that I've focused on personal growth. That's one of the things that I've gone out of my way and said, okay, hey, I understand at this point that if I don't look at things differently, I, A, sound offensive, B, I can't relate to others, and C, I don't know how to move humanity forward. And so I'll just ask a weird question. In retrospect, when we look back on some of the stuff I've done in my career, I guess if you want to call it. It's not really a career because podcasting isn't a career. We don't make any money. But the old show I had, we had a Catholic apologist reach out to us to debate abortion. He originally wanted to debate creationism, and then he kind of said, well, I've already done that, so I would like to debate abortion. Obviously, the Catholic was pro-life, and the host of the show that I worked on before was definitely pro-choice. We were both very pro-choice. So we set up the interview / debate and created a debate format, promoted it. Well, we got a little bit of feedback, and the feedback was very negative, saying, why would a male step up and take the position for women in debating abortion? And what that did is it created I don't know, I guess if you want to call it like a split personality in me. Some of me says is, hey, look, we're very, very, very pro-choice individuals. We support women's choice completely, all the way up until being able to have an abortion the day before you give birth. And we got a lot of negative feedback for that. And so we had some discussions behind the scenes with other people. And so my question in this environment or in this thing, where is the best place for a male to fit? Somebody that can at least acknowledge they have privilege, but wants to help drive the conversation forward.
Okay, well, here's the thing. You're going to find a lot of different answers to that. Feminists, like any other people, aren't monolithic, right? And we don't have the exact keys to our oppression. We don't, so we're always not going to have the right answer. So you could be talking to someone who self-identifies as a feminist and you can completely disagree, and that's okay, right? You don't want to be you're a woman, and so you must be right about any feminist issue all the time, right? To me, that comes across as condescending. I want someone to really engage in discussions with me. And as long as you have an open mind, you're willing to talk about it, I'm more than willing to have that conversation.
Yeah, and I on my segment about asexuality, I actually prefaced it with something like, I'm talking about asexuality because I'm trying to educate myself about, sexuality and sexual identities. And I am speaking here not on behalf of asexuals, but in order to help educate more people about this topic, right, so that we can all grow as human beings and learn to be more accepting and understanding of each other. And so having that sort of like disclaimer too, I think would be helpful to say, like, I'm not trying to speak for women. I'm not trying to speak for, everybody involved in the abortion debate, but saying like, but I am pro-choice and I'm, cis hetero white male, but I understand I have privilege, but I'm here to, have this debate so that I can, broadcast these ideas to more people because I have a platform.
Here's what I'm thinking. And this is what gets me particularly about the secular community, is we really like to debate.
Yeah.
Right. And often we think we're really good at debating about religion. So now I'm going to debate about feminism and without being fully informed or having done the research. And so it comes off as a very facile debate. So I often critique those types of debates in the secular community, not because I want to, limit someone's speech or limit the conversation or only have women speak for women. I'm perfectly okay if a man wants to debate about feminism, but you better fucking know what you're talking about. Right?
Yeah.
Let's not make this a facile argument where everything's shallow and we're not really providing any information, exchanging ideas. Like, that's really problematic to me. So if you want to do it, good, be informed, know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Kind of like
know
Eli.
Your shit and be ready for us to critique you, because we totally took down Eli Bosnick about feminism not too long ago. So we'll talk about
it. Everything that Eli does. Except when he talks about feminism. No, he's a feminism. I love it. He's doing a lot of good work in the community, promoting social justice issues, and I give him all the credit in the world for that. But he did make it into my Feminism 101 segment when he debated James Lindsay about feminism.
Yeah.
So basically, we just need to keep the arguments away from fallacies. We need to, no appeal to emotion. We have to appeal to actual experts, and if you don't know, go with a disclaimer, basically saying like, this is what I know. This is kind of what and then appealing to everyone, saying, hey, if you know better, please get in the conversation. Let's talk about this. I'm not the expert or anything along those lines.
Yeah. I think what often happens when people are debating feminism, it turns into this monolithic concept. Here's what feminism is. There is a long history of women who were feminist, of feminism, right? And so to talk about feminism as if it's happening just right now and is about your experience with a certain woman on the internet is highly problematic.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why I say that I just want the debates about feminism, when people are talking about it, to be historically informed.
Yeah, to have that background information of the history of feminism is really important to understand where it is now, and possibly even where it's going in the future, and not to be prescriptive about that the word feminism has to have a specific meaning
or
that's
gender
outside of that. That is just about females, about cis women,
right?
Because we don't think it is. we think it includes all genders and that it should be about gender equality.
Awesome. Well, I think this has been a great segment, and it's funny because we do get crap every once in a while for doing the feminist thing, and I think it's just because people don't want to look outside of their own comfort zone. And people always ask, they say, well, why are you harping on this? Just like you said earlier, that people think feminism is solved and this whole situation is just completely taken down and done up. And I always just want to argue, well, I look at my daughters, and I'll be honest, for me, feminism kicked in a lot harder when I started having children. And it's whether it's fair or unfair, that's just the reality of my situation. And one of the things I look at, and my daughter, we live in a very conservative area in Michigan, and my daughter has gotten pushback on some of her views. And, she went to school last year, and she has a best friend. And they were talking about who's going to marry who and inside of their little, first grader group, right? And she goes, well, I'm going to marry my friend, so-and-so, who just happened to be a female. And some boy goes, well, no, you can't do that. And she goes, well, my dad says I can, and if you don't like it, you can blow it out your ass. And I got an email from the teacher on that one for her swearing, but it goes to show, we have those conversations at home, and that's what I tell her. I was like, well, if the harm principle is lacking, you can do whatever you want. If you're not harming somebody, in all niceness, fuck them, I guess. That's the nicest way to say it. They can go blow it out their ass. Yeah. But on the other side, I'm trying to teach them, and my goal is to help bring them to understand that there's an educational side to this, and that I'm hoping that in 10, 15 years, when they get older, they'll be the ones that'll talk, and I'll be the one sitting in the chair, running the soundboard for them, because I've hoped to instill some sort of a activist side in them. My activist side came from, my religious upbringing. I was scheduled to be a pastor, for fuck's sake. And then, now I'm an atheist and have zero interest in religion. But that's my goal, is to try and instill in them the fact that they should use their knowledge and their ability to change society in some way, shape, or form for the positive.
Right. I think people who claim that feminism still shouldn't be an issue, I'm going to troll a little bit, should definitely listen to our podcast. We talk a lot about women's reproductive health, about medical issues, about our right to control our reproductive capacities, and all of those things that are limited in many ways still yet, and we believe are just basic individual liberty issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I work at a job right now that it's predominantly male, and it's considered a male's world. I work in a garage working on wrecked cars. And we just recently got a female manager.
And that's been interesting.
It's been extremely interesting, because I work with the guys that are completely conservative and they cannot stand having a woman tell them what to do. So
and it's 2016.
Yeah,
so
and I experience this daily. So.
You should put your cell phone on record mode once in a while and bring a couple of little sound bits to the show.
Oh, that's what I've been thinking about doing.
Well, as we wrap the segment up, we always like to give the guests an ability to tell everybody the best place to find you.
Would you like to take it away, Demanda?
Sure. You can find us at promotingsecularfeminism.com. We're on facebook.com/promotingsecularfeminism, and you can tweet us at secularfeminism.
So, well, thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you for sharing your
segment.
platform with us.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Yeah. And we love everything that you do, and we encourage all the listeners to make sure that they go out, check out Promoting Secular Feminism. You can find them at promotingsecularfeminism.com. You can find them on Facebook. You can tweet at them. You can find them anywhere. You can message us if you have to, and we will send you all their links. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. We'll be right back to talk about why your privilege may affect third-party voting and why you should vote Hillary, even though Hannah says you should vote Trump, and what your privilege infects inside of this. We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
This is Ishmael Brown, the HNIC from the Angry Black Rant podcast, and you're listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hi, my name's Callie.
And I'm Ari.
If you're like most of us, you're very concerned about the gay agenda's plans for world domination.
Are you tired of seeing glitter all over every damn thing?
Do you hate rainbows as much as any other red-blooded American?
Then we have the answer for all your baseless fears and unjustified paranoia.
Presented exclusively on Secular Media Network, the Gaytheist Manifesto is your source for news, commentary, discussion, and debate at the intersection of the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movement.
You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, and at gaytheistmanifesto.secularmediagroup.com.
If you're not ready to get in line for your mandatory gay marriage and you're terrified of short-haired women in pantsuits, come have a listen and get up to date on their plans. You'll be glad you did.
Like what you're hearing? Check out more Cellar Door Skeptics every week right here on Spreaker and iTunes. Make sure you come back and check out new episodes with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. And always, remember, prepare for the revolution.
This is Trav Ramon, host of the By Any Means podcast, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution. We have cookies.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptic.
Don't slur too much.
Don't
It's not
slur
like we
too
just did a
much.
shot
Damn
or
it!
something.
Damn it! Yeah, the slur was just dramatic effect there, Hannah.
Okay.
So we did have an amazing first segment with a podcast called Promoting Secular Feminism. And we thought it was important to kind of break up our political rampage. And I'll call it a rampage because I think Hannah and I have gone on a political rampage over the last, month. And for those listening, if you don't like the political rampage, make sure you send us an email at cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com. But that's something that we're very passionate about, given the tenacity of this year's election cycle. And I think the big thing is people get all wound up, right, Hannah? And people want to participate in this, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, political revolution. But they only want to do it during certain years. And later on tonight, we're going to talk about that as well. But the big thing here is this week, what happened at the DNC. Bernie Sanders has officially thrown his lot in for Clinton and taken a step back. And Clinton's accepted the nomination, and Bernie is not coming out saying, hey, I'm going to run against her now. And so I think that's a big point. That's a big thing that we got to talk about, because a lot of people are Bernie supporters. We all know Hannah's a Bernie supporter.
Yeah.
We know that.
Still got the bumper stickers and the T-shirt and all the stuff that I put money in and donated and everything. I really wanted to get behind basically the first candidate that was, and with their hands and feet a little bit into that big business stuff. So I really thought we had a chance, and he conceded defeat, and he stepped in line and got behind the Democratic national candidate so that we can have some kind of unity to defeat the Republican candidate, which is, it's not even really a Republican candidate. It's just the guy who took over the Republican Party for this short cycle.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole point of this conversation here is let's talk about the DNC email leaks and whether they're ethical or not. But we want to have that conversation because what's the one thing that is now going to come out? What are we going to hear about for the next 6 months from people who are Bernie supporters who are having a hard time backing Clinton? And we could get into the third-party candidates, and I'm okay with doing that. But the big thing is going to be people are going to go, well, no, Bernie should have won this. And if Bernie had won this, then we wouldn't be where we're at today. And it's a big conspiracy theory here that, all these people are screwing Bernie Sanders over. And so, Hannah, do you feel there's a conspiracy? Do you feel that the DNC went out of their way, based on the email evidence that we've seen, to screw Sanders over?
I don't know if it's so much to screw Bernie Sanders over, but what they did was they went out of their way to protect their investments. Bernie Sanders is an outsider coming into the Democratic Party as being an independent for the last 30 years. They obviously wanted to set up a little bit of a wall to try to keep that independent candidate from coming in and taking over their party, much like the Republicans wish they could have, and they wish they had the delegates that the Democratic Party had as this insurance policy against an outside candidate coming in and having this populist vote. So, like, yes, the Democratic National Convention did basically get together with the Hillary Clinton campaign and work a little bit together, maybe even more, a lot together, and to try to fight the Sanders campaign to, essentially protect their investments. Like I said, like all the people, the establishment people, a lot of the investments that have been made into the Democratic campaigns, they didn't want this guy who they didn't have any money behind coming in. And so the emails themselves, they're not really contested. This is essentially, I believe that these things are all legitimate truths that have come out, and they've shown that the Democratic National Convention and Debbie Wasserman Schultz's resignation have basically confirmed that there was bias against the Sanders campaign. Now, what do we do with that? It's like we already knew this though, as Sanders campaign funders, as people who were supporting the Sanders campaign. We expected this. We knew this was coming, and this is confirmation of our suspicions. But to say that this, the DNC propping up all of the Hillary Clinton propaganda or whatever is exactly and totally, completely responsible for the Sanders loss to Clinton for the primary, I do say that's a little bit much, because if you think about it, the number of people in this country that voted for the primary that are regular political information consumers that are on top of the game, I would say that the number of the people that are just kind of like, okay, it's primary season, I guess we'll go vote now, and I'll vote for the person that I know, those people are in the majority. And so the Sanders campaign worked really hard. They did a great job, and we'll always have that what if. But I do think that regardless of the DNC pushing or pulling or trying to throw its weight around, that Sanders lost the campaign to the Hillary Clinton, more popularly known name, more historically known name, and that we have to just kind of move on from that and try to prevent a red country, the red House, red Senate, and a red presidency. And that I think that we need to keep that in mind and work our way down the ticket. So to stay away from some of this conspiracy theory and fighting for something that we can no longer fix. There's no way we can get Sanders back into the role. It's already passed. It's gone. And that's what I've always said, is that once the convention's done and we have a clear, nominee, then I can't do anything else. I can't make any changes. So I have to start doing something. And what do I think I can do? I can start with the small in the local elections.
And one of the big things here, and we have a couple articles that we'll link in the description, one from MSN.com. We also have a Patheos argue from our friend Matthew Fascinoni. And he said this. He posted actual tweets from the press secretary of the Sanders campaign, Simone D. Sanders. And it says this. It says, "Let me be clear. No one stole this election. Team Sanders, we did amazing work, but we lost. It's a hard reality for some. It was a hard reality for me because I fought very hard. Now we won some great battles, but the reality is the system didn't cheat us. Now the contents of the leaked email show individuals were definitely biased, but 7 folks on an email didn't steal this election." And I think that's important, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Because what is everybody grasping for here, right, Hannah? What did Sanders do? He built emotion, right? He does have a platform, and I don't want to dismiss the platform he has, because he does have a platform. And I agree with his platform more than I agree with Hillary's platform. So I'll be honest, both of them are pretty war-oriented individuals, and I'm not. But Sanders' platform fits with my personal belief system more than Clinton's does. And Sanders has less ties to big money, less ties to Wall Street, so on and so on and so on. But that doesn't mean that just because Bernie lost, I got to find a reason to argue with it, or I got to find a reason to get angry and blame it on somebody else. He fucking lost. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. And let's look at the reality. What did he do? He walked into the DNC, right? he's brought an amazing campaign against.
Talk about an underdog battle.
Yes, and it was, and you have to grant that he took it to the DNC and said, "Hey, fuck you." Now, I'll be honest, if he was that much of somebody that wanted to change the world and do it on his own no matter what, he would have gone against the DNC. He would not have ran as a Democrat. He would have ran as an independent, or he would have joined the Green Party, one of the two. But he didn't. He chose the DNC. If they don't fight fair, then what do we have to do? We have to change why they don't fight fair. We either need to get more politicians involved to argue against the government to say, hey, these two-party systems are running our country, and in reality, this is a horrible bid for our country. But until the government steps in, nothing's going to change. We can't let libertarian principles, because what we see is libertarian principles at work here, right? You have two major parties that have billions of dollars being funneled back and forth between ads, being able to lobby, being able to pay certain people off. And that's the reality of the system. And we can either fight to change that, and later on we're going to talk how, but you have to fight against that. And Sanders did not walk in here and say, I'm going to fight against that. Sanders walked in here and said, hey, I'm going to try and change what we have. Because I think he knows. I think he understands the concepts. He understands how politics works. I mean, he's been doing this for how many fucking years, you know? Sanders knows that walking into these politics, that the quickest way to assert change is to fix or move one of the major parties left or right. And that's what he was doing. And if he had become president or had gotten the nomination, I'd be ecstatic right now. We'd be having a fucking drinking party. Hannah and I would be doing a shot a minute until we passed out on the floor and you heard silence on the podcast, you know? But that's not the reality. And so we can all go on and cheat ourselves and think, oh, you know, so's life, right? Oh, yeah, it is what it is. Sanders, you know, he did really good, but we need to find another candidate. Or we can accept the fact that what did Sanders drive towards? Sanders was driving towards change, and he was trying to do it through a major political party. Whether he is right or wrong in doing that, that's what he did. So as somebody that was on the Bernie bus, right?
Yeah.
How can we complain, Hannah? How do we even have a right to say, fuck the DNC for cheating him?
I'm not going to complain. I am not going to critique specifically and intensely the DNC. I'm not going to critique specifically and intensely Hillary Clinton. What I want to critique is the way the system is set up, and I'm going to obviously attack Donald Trump and just about everything he says, because he immediately attacked Bernie Sanders, saying that he's weak and he has no morals, and his revolution and the pedophile turning out pitiful and blah blah blah. Donald Trump has no sense of respect, has no sense of honesty and giving people the respect they deserve. So what I seriously wanted to do is consider the system. What about the system? What can I change? We talk about grassroots. We talk about making the changes we want. Well, you know what? It's a lot easier doing it from the bottom up than it is from the top down. So in this case, I can't get the candidate that I want at the top. I can't. I'm going to get a centrist right candidate. There's no way around that. That's what I'm going to have to vote for, because that's the best option I have. So I'm going to end up having to accept that. And what do? We're going to be talking to some people, hopefully in the future, in the next couple of weeks, that are going to be, local grassroots or local Democratic candidates for Michigan, for anything around the area that's going to be, from a little bit lower down, the state level, the people that are going to be making, moving things around and making them an important part of this election, because they are. There's a ton of seats that are open for the House and Congress that are going to be decided when it comes to November. And really, the encapsulation of my whole perspective is going to be the ending quote from the movie SLC Punk. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. But basically what it is the main character has just realized that he can't beat the system as a punk, and he has to get inside the system to destroy it. And I'm just going to go right with the quote. It says, and so there I was going to go to Harvard. It was obvious. I was going to be a lawyer and play the goddamn system. And that was that. I was my old man. He knew, what else could I do? I mean, there's no future in anarchy. I mean, we were a certain world, and that was going to end. When it didn't, I had to do something. So fuck it. It could be a litigator, or I could always be a litigator in New York and piss the shit out of judges. I mean, me, troublemaker of the future, the guy that was one of those guys that can make my parents so arrogantly save the world for, we could fuck it up. We could do a hell of a lot more damage in the system than outside it. That was my final irony, I think. And that, as well, was this. Fuck you. For all you who thinking it, I guess that was said and done. I was nothing more than a goddamn trendy-ass poser. And that's the thing I want to try to get to the Bernie bros that are like, they call it, Killary and Shillery. Yeah, I agree. She is not the most respectful candidate. She's not the most honest candidate. She got all kinds of trouble coming with FBI and investigations into the Clinton campaign or the Clinton Foundation. We have to figure whether or not those are going to be more important than keeping a guy like Donald Trump around, who is, I would say, the closest thing to fascism that the United States has ever put towards our actual leadership position. So, I mean, I'm going to have to go with the Clinton campaign, as much as I don't like being part of the establishment and centrism, but it's going to be better than the alternative. And I'm going to get inside the system with local candidates in my district and the people who are going to be, climbing the system, so to speak. And I'm going to try to get them to be, the future of our. And maybe we'll get something out of this, the Sanders campaign, that is going to be a progressive party. Maybe we'll get a third party that grows out of this. We'll see what happens in the next few years. I would love to see that. Sanders has already got all of his connections and everybody into a new revolutionary page, a new revolution, and we'll see what he does, because he's going to be going back as an independent into the Senate, and he's going to be hopefully. Maybe this might have been what Hillary has promised him to get him to finally concede, is that she'll give him the Senate majority seat where he can make a lot of actual progress with this country, as opposed to being, the big, historical winner of the presidential election.
Yeah. And in reality, do we really need change at the presidential level?
How much does it do?
How much does it do? And I think that's a good topic for another show, to be honest with you. I think we should do that. We should look at that. Because if he is creating some sort of big change, right, then fine. We should accept that the president should be somebody else. But look, she broke a glass ceiling. I mean, I'm sorry, but when my daughter literally sat on the couch and we were watching, the Democratic convention, and we're sitting there, and she's like, oh, who's that? And I was like, well, that's Michelle Obama. She's like, well, who is she supporting? I was like, Hillary Clinton. And my daughter is only 7 years old. And she says, it's nice to see women talk, isn't it, Dad? Yeah, you're right, honey, it is. And she goes, is a woman going to be president? And I said, yes. And I sat there and I wanted to cry, because how horrible in the how many years our country's existed. How many years has it been, Hannah?
Over 200.
Yeah. We haven't had a woman president.
No.
How disgusting is that?
We've got. I saw a post online or a meme or something that said, like, congratulations, consecutive white males for 44, nominations for presidents or whatever. Because, like, for the vice president has been a white male for every single one for the Democratic campaign. The Republicans pulled a sheet over their own faces with Sarah Palin, and that was the first one that was outside that loop. But other than that, the vice presidents have always been white males. So I mean, we had all the presidents and all the vice presidents, and there's a couple of outliers there with Sarah Palin, Barack Obama, and now with Hillary Clinton. But that's it. Those are the only three that have been non-white males.
Exactly. And so we can complain all we want, right? And maybe it's because people want the most amount of change the quickest possible. And that's how our society works. I mean, that's how evolution has worked inside of our human spectrum. Our human spectrum has just gone like that. And technology has exploded, our moral stances have exploded. And so people just assume that, hey, Bernie's got a more socialistic bend. It's going to help the most amount of people. Therefore, he should be next. But if we wanted to take it slow, we put Hillary in office. We break that glass wall, and we continue, or glass ceiling, sorry. and we continue to allow for that to change, put Bernie in charge of something more important that's going to drive more change, and call it a day. Because in the end, I mean, Bernie's old as shit. He's not going to be around in 8 years for a presidential bid, and if he is, he's probably not going to do it. Maybe he will. I
don't think it would be a sound thing for he would be 77 to run for, because he's 73 or he just turned 74.
Yeah, so in 8 years,
you're assuming 8 years. That you're assuming a Trump loss here. So like, let's say that in 2020 the worst comes to worst, and we actually do need a new Democratic president to run for office. Then he would be 77, 78 years old now. That would be a bit of a rush, and I don't know if there would be enough sustenance and enough support for someone that old. But let's say that Hillary does win through that, and she does go through 8 years, and there's no question he'd be in his 80s. There's no way that we could have someone that old that would be running for president. But the idea is, I saw this. It's a cool ancient philosopher saying that someone had attributed to Bernie. It says that one of the most important things that old wise men do is they plant a tree, hoping for shade that they will never actually see or rest under. And that's kind of the idea of the Bernie Sanders campaign and what he has talked about. And there was a great referendum that Rachel Maddow talked about between Bernie Sanders and Chris Matthews on one of the hardball debates, and that Matthews and Sanders just battled back and forth super hard. And in the end, Matthews finally got Sanders to admit exactly what he was wanting. He wanted to change the American political system. He wanted to make it different. He wanted to bring it back to the people. And that's the whole goal of what he's been trying to do. And so let's say that his loss here has elevated enough awareness for, the millennials, for the young people who said, you know what, I'm sick and tired of not having a great representative in the political system. So maybe this first one, not getting the president they want, but maybe they'll get involved. They'll get a Democratic Senate, a Democratic House. We'll start pushing for getting those positions filled, and we'll get back to progress in this country as opposed to regression. And I mean, it's a slow start. We can't expect, to have a messianic figure that'll solve everything. And as much as I love Sanders, I would love for him to be in office, but I really don't think he's going to solve the entire list of problems that we have. And if it comes down to it, where if we have all of those down ticket people get in, I think that's going to actually cause a better progressive mark in this country than just having Sanders as president and then continuing to have Republican-controlled House and Senate.
Yeah. So one of the other things as we close the segment out that I wanted to look at is, does your privilege allow you to not vote? And maybe this is a whole segment. Maybe we should spend an hour on this. And
why not?
I don't know.
We could definitely. I mean, we've only got a few segments for the show, so I mean, if we run this one out and we end up cutting one a segment, why not? Because this is pretty important. I mean, just assuming that a privilege that you and I, being white male and being middle class, we could survive a Trump presidency, and assuming that for the rest of the country, that's a pretty big deal.
Awesome. All right, so let's take a quick break then, Hannah, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about privilege. I know I said we do that last time, but we had to get into the Democratic and the Trump residency, right, and the Hillary residency. So now we're going to go into the research done and the privilege that is allowed, and we'll take a quick commercial break. And when we come back from our quick commercial break, because it's never long, is it, Hannah? It's never a long. It's never
especially
a long break.
If you listen to it in afterwards. It's not live. Oh wait, we're never live. Then you can just fast forward to it. But
don't fast forward through our commercials. Support our guests. Support everybody else. Support Cellar Door Skeptics on Patreon. But anyway, we'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics, having a conversation about your privilege and why, in my opinion, we should be voting for Clinton. We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hey guys, this is Wyatt Mathers from the Atheist Avengers Podcast. You are listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution.
Hi, this is Dan, Brian, and Matt with the Godless Revolution Podcast. We've had a lot of great guests on this show, such as Russell Glasser, Dan Arrow, Brian Fields, David Silverman, Doug Mesner, a.k.a. Lucian Greaves, and Joey Kirkman, whom we love a lot. We've also had a lot of really cool local guests. And we're a podcast that likes to fight for the separation of church and state and against anti-skepticism of all kinds. You should give us a listen, because if you don't, you're going to be really sad. Make your ears happy. Listen to the Godless Revolution Podcast.
If you guys like what you're hearing on Cellar Door Skeptics, please consider sponsoring us on our Patreon page. Our goal at Cellar Door Skeptics is to help promote more science, skepticism, secularism, and humanism in the world. We want to create better content for our podcast and for you, the listener, all while trying to help promote local activism. We're going to strive to make better podcasts, and I'll tell you what, we're even going to contribute some of the proceeds to charity. So please join us over at Patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics to make sure that you sponsor us for as little as $1 an episode. Thank you guys so much, and prepare for the revolution.
This is Deborah McTaggart from Beyond the Trailer Park, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Look into the sky once again and wonder why you're complaining your cynics and the show. I've never seen it coming through the demons that I summon. I got legion by the dozen, I don't know what I'm becoming. I've seen the lights of the righteous, you may never know. I've seen the gates of hell sometimes, I'm afraid this will.
All right. Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for sticking around. We talked with Promoting Secular Feminism earlier tonight, and we talked about the DNC convention, Bernie's lost, why the votes wouldn't have changed. And now we're going to talk about privilege, right? We're going to talk a little bit about privilege, because the big fucking thing I've been hearing, and yeah, I'm going to probably get it very explicitive in this part of the scenario, or this part of the show, is because what have I heard? Well, I'm not going to vote now. I'm going to vote for a third party. And I even brought statistics about why Jill Stein is a horrible fucking candidate.
Or Johnson.
Well, we all know that. He's libertarian. But and anybody listening to the show knows that we're definitely not libertarian leaning here.
Yeah.
But maybe we should do that. Maybe we should debunk Gary Johnson sometime. But for now, I'm not going to do that. For now, I'm going to sit there and say, well, hold on. So you don't want to vote Hillary?
Yep. So we'll just talk about the guys that are switching over from Sanders to Stein.
Yeah. And so why is that? Why would people want to leave the Democratic Party and move to Hillary? So we just debunked some of the email outrage, because in reality that's just a misnomer. It's just a way to lead people into this BS conversation about force feeding you the fact that the DNC is evil. And yes, so Hillary has a lot of downfall. She does. She does have not the best voting track record, honestly. And she has flip-flopped on a lot of ideas.
The TPP, which drives me insane.
Yes.
That's one of the ones that hurts the most, because we talk about her vice presidential candidate. The guy, just as recently as a couple weeks ago, spoke out in positive towards the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And when he was at the DNC, he said that he was against it. I mean, just that quick of a slip around. You know, my guess is that those are the types of things that it's like, okay, they're appeasing people to try to get into the position and catch up some of those moderate voters and some of the more progressive voters too that don't want that, and then they'll never actually get around to it, or they'll, like you said, flip flop. I fear that, and I would love to find some way to keep them in check. And so what people are thinking is like, okay, well, the way I can keep them in check is to threaten to vote third party. So I'll threaten to vote, or I will openly vote for Jill Stein as, you know, a British idea of the middle finger for Brexit, thinking that, you know what, it'll never actually happen. Jill Stein will never get elected, but this is the best way I can, you know, fight against the establishment for the Democratic National.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with fighting the specific two-party system. I don't actually have that problem, because I do disagree with the two-party system aggressively, and I don't think that this is the way of the future. I don't think that society is going to be able to evolve as fast with a two-party system. I would like to see a five-party system, personally, myself. That's how I think the greatest amount of change will happen once all of them get going. But third-party systems do not exist in the realm of our society. They're there. People vote for them.
They don't have enough legitimacy. They just don't get enough actual numbers.
Yes. And so, when we look at Gary Johnson and we look at Jill Stein and we look at what platforms they ran on and what they believe, are they changing minds at a local level first? And is their party changing minds? And I'll be honest, you want to know how many times I voted Green Party, Hannah?
I'm going to guess a couple.
Oh, more than a couple.
Really?
On local elections, I vote Green Party.
So you voted for...
I have voted for Green Party many a times. Not for the president, though.
Yeah.
Never once. I have voted local elections Green Party candidates, even if I don't know who the fuck they are sometimes, just because I thought at the time my vote would be better used to create change, right?
Yeah. Or at least it was outside, the outsider thing. That's the big thing. So my first vote was for Kerry. That was the first time I ever got a chance to throw my stuff out there. And yeah, no, the guy was not this. He was mush mouth, whatever. He was incredibly bland and boring. It's like Biden running for president. And so, he didn't really stand a chance against. Well, it's surprising that he didn't stand a chance, but I guess in the atmosphere of terrorist 9/11 and the Patriot Act America, that he didn't really have a chance. So we were still all pro-Iraq war at this point, and we hadn't really gotten a lot of information about that. That was the first vote I had, and I thought I was going to stop the war, stop the attacks, and it didn't really happen. And since then, watching the Democratic Party, watching these things happen, and I just have never been completely satisfied with what I've gotten. And I've really looked into the Libertarian Party and the Green Party, and they've never had even enough social support to even get onto the debate stage for the presidential election. Like, that's the most important thing for me. And this year is the first year that they're actually getting up there 11, 12, 13, 14%. So we're seeing a chance for them to get on the stage. And once they're on that stage, once they're on ABC and NBC and CNN and CBS and whatever, that maybe they'll actually, weirdest thing, the American populace, the populist vote, the people of the country will get to see who these other people are, and just them being visible will make a little bit of a change and take away from some of this monolithic and monopolistic between just the two parties themselves. So I guess, what, you're going to take it to Gary Johnson to start here?
Just because I put it up on the screen doesn't mean I want to jump to Gary Johnson.
He looks so angry.
He does. So a little quick research or quick information on Gary Johnson, right? Gary Johnson didn't start off as a libertarian. He started off as a Republican.
Oh, for a long time.
Yes. He didn't win shit on the Libertarian Party. He won it on the Republican Party's nomination. His governorship wasn't, hey, I'm a Libertarian, vote for me. It was, I'm a Republican, but I have Libertarian leanings, right? So Gary used established party politics
to gain position.
Yeah,
for New Mexico.
For New Mexico, yes. Now, I'm not going to tell you I disagree or agree with that. That's not up for debate. Because my opinion doesn't matter.
That's what Bernie did.
Yes.
As an independent, he's like, no. I need the exposure that running for Democratic president would get me. And so the question is, like what you were talking about earlier, would Bernie have ever even elevated to where he was if he ran just as an independent? And I don't think he would.
I don't know. We don't know that. My guess is no, but we don't know that. We don't have a definitive answer. But we do have past politics to sprinkle on this parade of bullshit. This year, right? This year, Gary Johnson, fuck him first off. I hate libertarian politics, but he didn't run on libertarian politics. He ran on Republican politics. And that's the whole problem here. He's not changing minds of libertarians. He's changing minds of Republicans and then saying, hey, I fooled you. I'm sorry, I'm a libertarian in reality. And again, I don't have a problem with that guy doing that. I didn't have a problem with Bernie jumping into the Democratic seat, even though technically he doesn't fit into the Democratic belief system. But I do have a big problem with third parties not being representative in local elections. I do have that problem. And we have facts on our side, right, Hannah? Right here. Yeah. And should we put more politicians on stage for debates? Yes.
Oh yeah, there should be 3 or 4 or 5 different views.
But there's a reason there's not, because the DNC and the RNC own these things,
Yeah.
and they own major political outlets, and they own major media outlets, and they do this on purpose, right? And if we disagree with them, what do we have to do? We have to change local politics so that we can get local people to run. It would kind of be like saying some dude ran as a Christian, Christian liberal, right? And then all of a sudden that guy goes, "Oop, sorry, I'm actually an atheist. Therefore, hey, now I'm on the public spectrum on a major political party. Vote for me." And you'd be like, "Well, hold on. You've told us you're a Christian for how many years, and now you're not?" That's what I feel Gary Johnson is doing in what he's bidding. And so that's going to lead to what we want to talk about at the end of the show about where you can vote in Michigan. Yeah. Hopefully a lot of people are out there voting in their local primaries. Mm-hmm. But we have to look at, so Gary used his privilege as a white male to get into the Republican Party, and then he flip-flopped, which is kind of what Kerry did, honestly.
I guess he didn't entirely flip-flop, because he had Ron Paul run recently in actually this year's Republican presidential campaign, and Ron Paul and Rand Paul both were the libertarian candidates that moved over into the more prospective Republican candidacy to try actually win there as kind of an outsider moving into the system. These types of things aren't completely irregular in a lot of political politics, but in recent cases, we've seen these more and more useful outsiders coming in and utilizing that two-party system and utilizing what they have. Like the Johnson, he favors school vouchers, term limits, privately run prisons, lean budgets, and deep tax cuts. I was doing some reading online, and in his first term, he vetoed 200 different bills, which were many of them were spending bills, and he labeled them, profile gate is what he called them. What he was is the libertarian perspective of reducing government, reducing government space, reducing government control, just obviously vetoing anything and everything that came to his way to the libertarian ideal. So he was kind of doing that as he was a Republican in office. And so those types of things like that shows you what he would do as president. He would probably veto anything that came through big government, anything major spending, any kind of, the healthcare, the Affordable Care Act extensions, and giving people that need healthcare. Gary Johnson would not do that, and so the people that are in the Sanders campaign who love what Sanders' ideals were to jump over into Gary Johnson's area, thinking that there's an outsider to represent them, is a complete and utter failure to do research on that candidate.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with Jill Stein, right?
Yeah,
she's for climate change, right? She says, hey, this is a fact. We know there's climate change. We need to help create a way to fix this. But she's also neutral to anti-GMOs.
She's weirdly kind of anti-science. She accepts science in some places that confirm her perspective, and she, I guess, dismisses science and things that don't confirm her bias.
She wants to support funding for teaching and practice of alternative therapies. And it's like, fuck you. Oh wait, are you being funded? And that would be my biggest question. If it finds out Jill Stein's biggest backers are pseudoscience fuckery, then fuck her. Yeah. She has no right to say I'm different than Hillary. No right to say she's different than Trump. No right to say she's different than anybody else. And that's my problem. She sells snake oil bullshit. And I got into an argument with somebody this weekend over this, right? They're like, well, no. Jill Stein, you're just believing the Hillary bots.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, fuck you guys, right? Fuck you. Stop calling me a Hillary bot. Stop saying that people that support Hillary are listening to Hillary bots. Get over it. People can be educated, right? You're educated in your Jill Stein supports. I just think her policies are bullshit, right? Okay, she wants to legalize marijuana. Fine, agree with it. She wants to end the war on drugs. 100% agree with that. She wants to get the fuck out of all the foreign countries and remain domestic. Agree with that. I do. But I don't agree with her stance. And she's a physician, for fuck's sake. I don't agree with her stance on alternative therapies
and the vaccines. I mean, that's so she's not so much against the vaccination stuff, but what she does is she inherently distrusts the FDA. She thinks that the FDA is this crony corporation, this crony organization that's completely run and totally just controlled by third-party interests or by, big business interests or whatever, by lobbyists, and that they shouldn't be trusted. Well, the FDA, yeah, they have some issues, but to say that we don't trust the FDA is a huge step in saying that, the scientific community in the United States is not really a trustworthy source of information. These people, of all the groups in this country that are in charge of large portions of the country, that are in charge of large pieces of what we have to deal with on an everyday basis, the FDA is probably the most respective of how to keep humans alive and safe and healthy than, let's say, the Science Commission, which is headed by Ted Cruz, or any of the environmental coalitions that are really obviously not doing a whole lot in the United States. We've got a lot of stuff that we've got to deal with, but food and health and stuff, if you don't trust GMOs and you don't trust the vaccinations, what can you trust in this country? Like, what can you trust as far as, like, the FDA saying food and drugs are safe? Yeah, the lobbyists for the Food and Drug Administration, so the big pharma companies, they have a lot of pull, but we're talking about, small things and painkillers and medications like that are really powerful. But vaccinations, there's no question really what they're doing. They're very trustworthy. They're very safe. And her skepticism for those is I guess, an errant perspective in my ideas.
Yeah. And so what does that lead us to, right? That leads us to, okay, so in my opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, my opinion is that Jill is inexperienced, and that she's basically bought and paid for by the anti-science crowd. Now, you won't hear a lot of people admit that, but I do think that she buys into too much of that to make her a valid candidate. She just doesn't have the experience that's needed, to run foreign policies as the president. Would she make a good congresswoman or a good Senate woman, whatever the hell they call that?
State representatives.
There you go, state representative.
I would agree with that.
I don't disagree with that. I do disagree with her anti-science bit, but yeah. I do think that she would do some real good, especially when it comes to foreign policy, to get involved. But she doesn't have the experience. Then we look at Gary Johnson. And Gary does have some experience, but he cuts the Board of Education, for fuck's sake. In his own state, he allowed vouchers to go to non-secular schools, and he wants us to think that a single taxpayer system will help the middle and poor classes. He just thinks that, hey, we have a unified one tax level, call it a day.
A flat tax?
Yeah. He's a 100% flat tax person.
Well, I'm curious to see whether or not he would, let's say that everybody in the country pays 30%. So you're saying that billionaires pay 30%? I would love to see him actually try to get that, when it comes down to it, if he was president or if he was running for that, I would love to see him try to do that. I don't really think that he would ever be able to succeed at that. And so it's whether or not it's shooting for the stars or not, too.
So then we have Trump, right? Trump has manipulated government loopholes. He is independently wealthy, but based on the backs of others. He shows no concern for people through his actions of his business. He's a racist. He's a bigot. He's a hothead. His foreign policy is so bad that all he wants to do is try and force all businesses to come home, even though their businesses aren't here. He doesn't have businesses here, right? He's using foreign labor for half his businesses.
Well, a lot of his businesses fail. I mean, he's right now the dealing with the Trump University and stuff. Like, what he does is he basically concedes deals and pays off whoever sues him, whoever aggressively attacks him.
Calling him out for that.
Oh yeah, and this stuff will show up in the debates. I guarantee it, and I can't wait.
Yep, and I can't wait either. So that leaves me with Hillary, right? Out of the four candidates, that leaves me with Hillary. And Hillary has money. She has sided with Wall Street in the past. But she does have a lot of liberal qualities, and she has moved farther left out of the center. And so to me, she's the most glaring choice. But people still are going to go, well, she violates my principles. She violates this. I just can't do it that way. I want to ask you one thing. How privileged do you have to be to imagine that it's a good idea to risk the actual lives of vulnerable Americans because you don't like Clinton, because you don't like some of her policies, right? I'm anti what she wants to do with the military. I hate drone strikes. I can't stand them.
I'm so anti-imperialist, it hurts.
Fair enough. And I sit in the same boat you do.
Yeah.
But I'm not a one a trick pony, I guess, if you want to call it, or a one sparkle princess sparkle farts unicorn here, right? I don't just have one issue I vote for. Yep. And I think the one big thing that people don't understand is, where does your privilege lie? I'm a white male. I'm middle class. You know, I don't make a lot of money. We do struggle. I don't own a boat. I don't own a cottage. You know, I own one house with a little bit of land. My kids don't have to, you know, wear secondhand clothes if they don't want to, though we do typically. But I have privilege.
And so you could survive. You could survive a Trump presidency if we all
maybe. Well, not if they come to our doors and say, "Hey, are you an atheist?" and shoot us, and I wouldn't survive that. But,
yeah, they may make you wear a special armband the next couple of years.
But we do have privilege, Hannah, and you do too. I mean, you grew up.
Oh, I know I do.
Somewhat middle class. I mean, you are in the minority of business owners that have continued to be able to pass their businesses onto their children. I mean, your dad was successful. You're successful.
Yeah.
You aren't a millionaire, though. You don't drive around. You drive a...
I got a Kia Sportage, and it's nice, damn it. It's nice.
But
it's got Bernie stickers, and it's cool.
It does, and I got a Hillary sticker for your car.
All right, well, anyway, when I think of, like, okay, are you middle class, or are you decent? Well, my spending habits and my financial awareness have been pretty good since I've been a pretty young person. I have over $15,000 in the bank on a regular basis. I save my money. I don't spend it on a lot, but that simple fact alone puts me in, you know, less than 10% of the United States. I mean, it really is. It's that low. That there's an absolutely enormous number of people in this country who don't have $100, $200, $300, $500 in the bank. They cannot save money. They make as much as they can to stay alive. The fact that I have the ability to save money every week and every month, and, you know, create big projects and work on, you know, I just redid my kitchen, and it was not that painful of an investment. Those kinds of things make me understand that, you know, I am higher and better off than a lot of people in this country. And I push myself to stay empathic towards the people who are low class, who are, you know, the minimum wage, and they just cannot make ends meet. And so what I try to do is try to remind myself that even though I could survive a horrible Trump presidency, more than likely, with just being a frugal person and keeping my nose out of the air or whatever, and just trying to stay back and out of the way, there's a lot of people who probably would go into utter chaos and utter horror would a Trump presidency and a lot of the things that he would want to enact come to play. So I had to take that into mind. It's not just me. It's a social contract, being an American, being a citizen, being a part of our society. I sacrifice some of my rights to help the other people in this country. And that's part of what all citizens should do, is we should recognize and realize that you can't, it's not just you. This isn't a libertarian society. This isn't a utopian society where you get what you want and everybody else can just good luck. That's not how it works. If everybody else does well, you will do well. And a Trump ideology does not accept that. The Trump ideology does not say that if everybody in the lower class and everybody in the middle class is doing well, then everybody else will do well at the top end. They don't understand that, and they don't respect that. And that's something that I have to remind myself when I think of, you know, I don't want Hillary Clinton as my president. And a lot of people in my situation, you may, you know, be in the same situation. Like, okay, I could survive it, so why do I care? Why should I even mess it? Let America deal with the mess that it digs itself if it tries to vote Donald Trump in as president. And then I'll just deal with it in 4 years when the fire, you know, when the storm blows over.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We could survive this. We probably could, you and I, at least for 4 years, maybe not 8.
Yeah, I don't know.
At least 4. But that's the thing. Why should we force others to suffer? Where's our humanist tendencies here, right? Mm-hmm. You're a secular humanist. I'm a secular humanist. We both see humans as the future of life. We both want them to succeed. We had Promoting Secular Feminism on earlier, right? There's a reason we had them on. You and I are not the authorities on feminism, for fuck's sake.
We support them, but we are not those guys.
We are the allies, the girls. We are the allies in this. We are the ones that are saying, hey, you know what? You're right. You deserve equal pay. You know what? You deserve an equal chance at the presidency. And you deserve an equal chance at the presidency without people claiming you're a liar any more than they claim anybody else is. Nobody on the left is sitting here attacking Trump like they're attacking Clinton. I look at the Bernie bros, right? And I'm sitting here going, what the hell? What the hell? You're going after Hillary because your candidate didn't win? Why are you not going after Trump? Well, I don't like Trump either. Well, hold on. Why should that be your first line of attack? You want to go after her because she took your candidates away. It's now personal for you. It has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that it's a female, except for you just can't see that it does.
Yeah.
You can't see that in the end, she's done less crimes than probably any other fucking Democrats out there, right? She's done less crimes than Trump has. I mean, Trump's sitting here saying, I'm going to build a wall. We had this segment last week, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it wasn't popular, but we had this segment last week where basically we debunked what Trump was saying. Trump literally says, yeah, I'm going to build a wall and I'm going to bring everything back to America, but I haven't shown the example. I'm just going to tell you what you want to hear. And in the end, I'm just going to erect a statue of myself and say, hey, look, I'm motherfucking awesome. So either you like me or you don't, but hey, you elected me, so I'm going to kill you all.
Yeah, it's a Trump ideology that basically, he's been sued a million times, but he always deals out of court, and so he's never lost, and he's never been found guilty in his situations and in any of his lawsuits or whatever. I will say that now that the campaign's done, now that the nominations have been decided, and we have two candidates. And we also have to consider the other two, but there's really two people running for the presidency of the United States. And now, the full-on attack against the Republican candidate can commence. For me, especially, that will be what I will be completely concentrating all of my political endeavors towards, is just explaining and breaking down what the ridiculousness of Donald Trump is.
Yeah, exactly. And so as we walk away from the segment and move towards the end of the show, we want to bring it back to the Michigan primary, right? We want to bring it back to local elections, because I agree. I would prefer Bernie over Hillary. And I'm not going to lie about that. That's a fact. But Bernie's not here. I'm not going to not vote just because my privilege allows me to move on. I'm not going to not vote because I prefer a third party over her who won't get elected, who isn't going to do anything, who is not established. Right? Yeah. So what can I do? I can go into my primaries and I can go look at my general election and I can go, okay, hey, what's going to happen? How can I change this? How can I put forth better judicial positions? How can I go and put forth who I want in my local offices? Because if the Green Party... Thank you, dog. Stupid dog. Dog walking in while recording. But anyway, if I want to go into the elections and go, hey, in August, I do get to vote. I do get to vote for local positions. I do get to vote to say, hey, this is the judge I want, this is the judge I don't want, or this and that. Can we vote Green Party? And here, we talked at the beginning of the segment, or last segment, Hannah, about how I have voted Green Party. This is where I actually do vote Green Party. And it honestly, a long time ago, was just because I think marijuana should be legal, and we should stop imprisoning minorities. And that's one of the major reasons I always voted I was a one-issue voter in local elections, because I wanted to move them forward. But we live in Michigan. Our Democratic and Republican Party are very similar. They really are. And I want to change. And so I'm going to go into this election. I'm going to look at my third-party candidates. And I'm going to go, which one fits me better? Because at a local election, there's less to be had in terms of affecting the minorities around here.
Well, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be, obviously, we always go live. We pre-record, but we go live on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. as anyone that's listening to this, possibly right when it comes out. But August 2nd is that's the date that the election happens. This is going to be the primary for Michigan. And so one of the things we're trying to figure out is what's the point of this primary when we already had the primary in March. So the March primary is March 8th was the presidential primary. This is the election where Michigan voters weigh in on who they want to receive their party's nominations. And so they called it closed with air quotes, around it, because you had to say, I want a Democratic ballot or I want a Republican ballot. They would give you that ballot. and then you would go and into your little cubicle and you would select that one person that you especially thought was amazing. Well, obviously, Bernie Sanders won Michigan in a huge upset, one of the biggest upsets in the history of politics. When 538 was talking about the Michigan primaries, and so this was we thought this was going to be a change in the presidential elections. Well, it didn't turn out to be, because it was one of the last really big upsets that the Sanders campaign was able to pull off. But now this August primary is here. And in this primary, we choose what candidates are running for the general election for the November in all of the offices, the state representatives and all of the other legislators, members of Congress, judicial positions, and locally elected officials. So all these partisan races, and I went through the list. In my district, I don't have a lot of Green Party choices. I don't have a lot of third-party choices. In some positions, there isn't even any other choice but a Republican choice. And it's incredibly frustrating that there's only one person running for a position. And so, I mean, you just have to leave that vote empty as a Democrat because you don't want to show overwhelming support for the one person running or whatever. But these types of things are important because we have to figure out basically what we're going to be doing for the rest of the state. Because if you think about it, all of these positions are open. So let's say we get the Democratic president in, just like the Obama administration has been. What has he been dealing with? He's been dealing with an obstructionist House and an obstructionist Congress. He can't get anything passed, and likewise they can't get anything passed because he just vetoes anything that's horrible. So what do we do to try to continue this progressive movement? We have to get the local elections. We have to get the local, the state level electorate going. And so we're trying to switch this back over because the Republicans put a ton of money into the midterm elections a couple of years ago to win all of these seats, to take control of the House and the Senate and everything. So this is our chance to kind of get that. If you have a chance in your district, in your area, to vote green, you can. That's awesome. You can support that third party and make that an important voice. But for me, for my particular position, I don't have a whole lot of that. We've included some links. If you're a Michigan candidate or a Michigan resident, you can go to the Secretary of State, and we've included a link, and you can see all of the people that will be available on your ballot. But moving on past that, there's some interesting stuff as to what kind of state does Michigan have when it comes to like what do you have to have? Because we always hear about the voter ID laws. Michigan's got some pretty specific stuff here. What types of photo ID are acceptable? And okay, I've got a list in here. So, Chris, do you think any of these particular things are making it too difficult for minorities or anybody that come and vote in this country? I'm kind of okay with most of it, but
yeah. I mean, they say, hey, you need to have a Michigan or state issue license.
A photo ID.
Yep, a photo ID. You can have a driver's license or personal ID card from any other state. Seems simple, right? Federal or state issued photo ID, U.S. passport, a military ID, which in my opinion is extremely important. If you can vote with a military ID, in my opinion, that should solve awesome. A lot of problems. You can have, here's this, student identification, a photo from a high school or accredited institution of higher learning. That's amazing. You don't ever see that, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're in on a student visa or something.
Yeah. And so, yes, with that, you could, if you applied for that, you could actually vote. Tribal identification card, or you can have, and your ID does not have to actually have an address on it. And so that's the best part. I'll be honest.
So you need your name and your face on a plastic card of some kind. It doesn't seem like it's too difficult because Michigan's got a lot of Secretary of States, but some states like Texas, there isn't a Secretary of State or something for like 100 miles. So it's a really difficult thing. But in Michigan, I think it's not too much.
Yeah, we have them everywhere. They're all over the place. They're always fucking full and busy.
Yeah, I know.
They are. They're horrible. But we have them at least. And so we can bitch about it. We can bitch about this. But Michigan, at least in my opinion, is fair on this topic. They really are. But to your point, Hannah, as we end the show, we have to. We can't stay too long. Because if we don't end the show, everybody will be here for 20 hours. But the big thing here, right? The big thing here, Hannah, is that you're saying you don't like Hillary. Don't not vote for her. Understand your privilege. But go to your local elections. Go to your state elections. Make your bids there. Change the way the voting IDs and everything are in your state there. Go after those people. Change how you see things, how you want things to be on the local level, on the state level, and then they will funnel into a federal level. And that's the thing here, everybody. If we just want to take the top nomination and say, yup, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to be, this is where we're going to change things, we're going to all fail to understand that local elections matter more.
Yeah, well,
local elections have to matter more. And without that, we don't have anything. We're just wandering in the wind.
So that's very romantic there. We definitely have to worry about the Bernie crats and stuff, so trying to get that in there. And then look up Bernie crats, and then you can find some more of the progressive candidates.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us for Cellar Door Skeptics. You can find us on iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating or any fucking rating. You can find us on Spreaker. Like us. Give us a rating on there. Make sure you also subscribe to us on Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, anywhere you can go, because we want to change the revolution. Have a good night, everyone. And remember, we'll be back next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Have a good night, everyone.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, cellardoorskeptics.com.